When I tell people that I am dyslexic, what are the first things that come to their mind? Well, they will typically think that I cannot spell words correctly, or that I read things backwards. They may assume that I will read saw as was, or that I will write my P's as B's. The truth is, dyslexic individuals actually see things the exact same way as you do. We just have problems with manipulating the language. Doing tasks could be stressful for dyslexic students, and reading might be more time-consuming since individuals might need more time decoding text. Dyslexia is a known learning disability that may affect up to 1 in 5 students in every classroom. Dyslexia is not well understood, however, we do know that it is a neurological disorder. We also know that dyslexia impacts the ability for students to process phonologically. Dyslexia may vary throughout different individuals. Some may have more modern symptoms, whereas others may be more severe. It is also important to note that dyslexic students do not have below average learning intelligence. In fact, they can often be very bright. Here are some examples of some famous individuals who are dyslexic. Now, let me introduce myself a little. My name is Rina, and I was born in Japan. I moved to China when I was 5, and I've been in Canada since I was 8. Despite growing up in 3 different countries that spoke very different languages, I never struggled with reading or writing until I moved to Canada and began learning English. This is when I realized just how different English was from the rest of the languages I knew. The writing system in Japan is based on the use of logographic symbols and symbols that represented syllables. Chinese is based on the use of logographic symbols only, whereas English uses an alphabet which has characters that come together to form syllables, which formed words. Watching television and communicating with my friends only helped me with the verbal aspect of English language, but I still struggled with reading and writing. Because English was my third language, my parents and all my teachers assumed that I was struggling with English because I had a language barrier, rather than realizing that I was displaying qualities of dyslexia. It was not until much later in life that teachers noticed that I had dyslexia. Each of the language I knew had a different demand on my working memory. We can illustrate this by using water as an example. In Japanese, the word water, mitsu, is represented with 2 distinct symbols from the Japanese alphabet. Each symbol represents 1 syllable and only 1 pronunciation. In Chinese, the word water, 水, is represented with 1 single unique character with 1 pronunciation. English, however, has a greater demand on working memory because it requires the brain to process 5 different characters from the alphabet. In addition, different combinations of characters are associated with different phonomic sounds. If we rearrange or misread the arrangement of the characters, now the word can mean something else or nothing at all. These can all lead to increase in the consumption of working memory processing resources and can lead to additional complications. Over time, it's been very apparent that I am having difficulties comprehending text, especially when it comes to upper division education courses. Despite understanding each sentence on its own, I often find myself rereading sections numerous times because I have difficulty fully understanding paragraphs as a whole. I have also noticed that sometimes I cannot hold too much information in my working memory for too long. I often forget what I might have previously read after reading some new information. This becomes a problem when I am being told lots of information at once, especially when I do not note them down. Some other affected learning outcomes common among dyslexic individuals might be the inability to sound out unfamiliar words, poor spelling or comprehension, poor ability to distinguish similar words, having trouble discerning left and right, difficulty in retelling stories, and many, many more. But most importantly, like I've explained earlier, it has a negative impact on the working memory. Many dyslexic students have poor memory recall. In this case, even when students appear to fully understand things well, they often struggle to recall a concept later on. For example, picture your memory as a storage room. Now imagine looking through the storage in a hurry with the lights off. This is often how a dyslexic student acts. Often, they might make mistakes here and there by grabbing the wrong information from their memory. There are an extensive amount of studies on the working memory of dyslexic individuals. Since we do not have enough time to view all of these studies, I have found a couple of articles which might be relevant to the previous problems that I've experienced as a dyslexic adult. The first study on the reading comprehension abilities on dyslexic students in higher education compared 10 dyslexic adults to 10 non-dyslexic adults to see if the dyslexic students experiences reading comprehension difficulties with textual materials appropriate for their age and intellectual level compared to the non-dyslexic adults. Each adult was given a 655-word passage to read. Then they were required to complete 5 literal and 5 inferential multiple-choice questions. It was hypothesized that a cognitive deficit will impair the reading comprehension abilities of dyslexic students. When the study was complete, it was shown that dyslexic individuals performed well on the literal questions in the task. However, they scored significantly poorer on the inferential questions. Inefficient decoders will have less working memory resources available for comprehension processing, which may also affect their automatic problem-solving skills. The second article on the working memory functioning in developmental dyslexia examined 44 adults, 22 which were dyslexic and 22 non-dyslexic. The purpose of this experiment was to test to see how dyslexic adults might perform on simple span, complex span, which both require storage and processing by using the working memory, and dynamic memory updating in comparison to the non-dyslexic group. The experiment was presented on a PC. Each participants were asked to complete 4 simple verbal span by speaking the name of each stimulus shown on the PC verbally. 3 complex working memory span which tested verbal and visual spatial working memory by pressing keys on the keyboard to answer questions, and 2 updating measures of memory recall by writing down previously shown sequences. It was hypothesized that there will be a significant difference in spatial working memory condition that draw most heavily on the central executive functioning. Research findings found that the dyslexic group has significantly lower scores on all the phonological tasks and also the spatial working memory span task. Working memory deficits associated with dyslexia do extend into adulthood, and the problem associated with working memory are not limited solely to the maintenance of information in the short-term memory, but in the central executive impairment. As future educators, we are responsible for facilitating the healthy development of all our students. Being able to identify and understand how learning disability impacts the ability for students to learn is critical, as it may be the best chance for these students to keep up with their peers. Knowledge on learning disability can allow teachers to become better at helping students overcome obstacles that are causing them to struggle. Teachers can then find appropriate ways to work with the student or recommend additional help in order to ensure that the student is not denied a fair chance to learn. I hope that my short presentation has been valuable to you and that you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.